Welcome to Stoic Vivu, where we make ancient wisdom practical for modern life. I'm here to help you discover how the timeless teachings of Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus can transform your daily experience and bring you genuine fulfillment. Today, we're exploring a question that has puzzled humanity for centuries. What is true happiness? If you're like most people, you probably think happiness means excitement, pleasure, or getting everything you want. But what if I told you that this modern definition of happiness is actually keeping you from experiencing the deep, unshakable joy that the ancient Stoics discovered over 2,000 years ago? The Stoic philosophers understood something profound about human nature that we've largely forgotten. They realized that happiness isn't an emotion you chase or a reward you earn. Instead, it's the natural result of living according to your highest potential as a human being. It's what Aristotle called eudaimonia, human flourishing, the deep satisfaction that comes from realizing what you're truly capable of. When most people hear Stoicism, they imagine emotionless robots who suppress their feelings. But that couldn't be further from the truth. The Stoics weren't trying to eliminate emotions. They were trying to eliminate destructive emotions like envy, fear, greed, and uncontrolled ambition that prevent us from experiencing genuine contentment. They discovered that true happiness comes not from adding more to your life, but from removing what doesn't serve you and focusing on what actually matters. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the ancient world, wrote in his personal journal that sanity means tying your well-being to your own actions, not to what others say or do. Seneca, despite his wealth and influence, learned that if you don't regard what you have as enough, you'll never be happy even if you rule the entire world. Epictetus, who spent years as a slave, found that his greatest delight came from improving himself day by day, regardless of his external circumstances. These weren't abstract philosophers debating in ivory towers. They were real people facing real challenges: political pressure, exile, slavery, war, loss. Yet they discovered practical strategies for finding lasting happiness that work just as well in our modern world of social media, career pressure, and endless distractions. In the next 7 sections, we'll explore the ancient Stoic keys to lasting happiness. You'll learn how to build unshakable confidence from within, end the comparison trap forever, find joy in daily improvement, stay focused in a distracted world, discover the secret to happiness schools never taught you, understand what loss teaches about true wealth, and how your daily choices create genuine beauty. These aren't feel-good platitudes or quick fixes. These are time-tested principles that have helped millions of people across 20 centuries find peace, purpose, and profound satisfaction. By the end of this video, you'll have a completely new understanding of what happiness really means and 7 practical tools you can start using immediately to experience the deep fulfillment the Stoics called the good life. 1. How to build unshakable confidence from within. You're sitting in the conference room at your Manhattan office, heart pounding as your presentation ends. The silence feels eternal before your boss finally speaks. We'll review this and get back to you. As you walk back to your desk, that familiar knot forms in your stomach. Did they like it? What are they thinking? Will this affect your promotion? Your entire sense of self-worth hangs on their approval, and you won't know their verdict for days. This scenario plays out millions of times every day across America, from boardrooms in Chicago to coffee shops in Austin. We've become addicted to external validation, constantly seeking approval from bosses, friends, social media followers, and even strangers. But this addiction to outside opinions is quietly destroying our happiness and peace of mind. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled the Roman Empire at its peak, understood this trap better than anyone. Despite having the approval of millions of subjects, he wrote in his private journal, "Ambition means tying your well-being to what other people say and do. Sanity means tying it to your own actions." Think about the profound wisdom in those words. The most powerful man in the ancient world was warning us that seeking external validation is a form of madness. Why is external approval so dangerous? Because it places your happiness, your self-worth, and your peace of mind completely outside your control. When you base your confidence on what others think, you're essentially handing over the keys to your emotional well-being to people who may not even care about your best interests. They can reject you, ignore you, or withdraw their approval at any moment, leaving you devastated through no fault of your own. Consider this. You wake up tomorrow feeling great about yourself, confident in your abilities and proud of your recent work. Then you check your phone and see a critical comment about something you posted, or you hear through the grapevine that a colleague questioned your competence. Instantly, your mood crashes. Your confidence evaporates. You spend the rest of the day replaying the criticism, doubting yourself, and feeling miserable. But what actually changed about you? Nothing. Your skills, your character, your accomplishments, all exactly the same. Only someone else's opinion shifted, yet it had the power to destroy your entire day. The Stoics called this handing over your happiness to fortune, and they saw it as the root of human misery. Seneca wrote that when we depend on others for our sense of worth, we become slaves to their opinions, moods, and whims. We lose our freedom and become prisoners of other people's approval. But there's a better way. The Stoics developed what they called an internal compass, a deep, unshakable sense of your own worth based not on external validation, but on your character, your efforts, and your commitment to doing the right thing. This doesn't mean becoming arrogant or dismissive of feedback. It means developing such a clear understanding of your values and such confidence in your own judgment that you can receive both praise and criticism without losing your emotional equilibrium. Imagine returning to that conference room scenario, but this time with a Stoic mindset. You give your presentation knowing you've prepared thoroughly, presented honestly, and done your best work. When your boss says they'll get back to you, instead of anxiety, you feel calm. You know you've done everything within your control excellently. Whether they approve or not doesn't change the fact that you acted with integrity, competence, and professionalism. Their opinion matters for practical purposes, but it doesn't determine your worth as a person. This isn't about becoming indifferent to others or rejecting all feedback. The Stoics valued wisdom and were always willing to learn from others. But they distinguished between seeking knowledge and seeking approval. You can listen to criticism to improve your work while maintaining confidence in your fundamental worth. You can appreciate praise without becoming dependent on it for your happiness. Building this internal compass requires daily practice. Start each morning by reminding yourself of your core values and commitments. Ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be today? How can I act with integrity regardless of how others respond? End each day by reviewing your actions, not through the lens of whether others approved, but whether you lived up to your own standards. When you catch yourself seeking validation, pause and redirect. Instead of asking, what will they think? Ask, what's the right thing to do? Instead of, will this make them like me? Ask, Will this make me proud of myself? This simple shift from external to internal reference points can revolutionize your confidence. The Stoics understood that true confidence isn't about never doubting yourself or always feeling certain. It's about developing such a strong foundation of self-knowledge and commitment to virtue that external opinions, while sometimes useful, can never shake your fundamental sense of worth. When your confidence comes from within, from your character, your efforts, and your integrity, it becomes unshakable because it's based on things you actually control. Marcus Aurelius spent his evenings writing to himself, not seeking glory or recognition, but clarifying his thoughts and strengthening his resolve to live according to his principles. He was building that internal compass, that sanity he wrote about, that comes from tying your well-being to your own actions rather than others' opinions. This foundation of internal validation becomes the bedrock for all other forms of happiness. When you know who you are and what you stand for, when your confidence comes from your character rather than others' approval, you're free to pursue meaningful goals, build genuine relationships, and contribute to the world without the constant anxiety of seeking validation. Building upon this foundation of inner strength and self-reliance, we can now explore how the ancient practice of gratitude transforms our relationship with what we already have, freeing us from the endless cycle of comparison and want. 2. The daily practice that ends envy forever. You're scrolling through Instagram at 11 p.m. in your Chicago apartment, the blue light casting shadows across your tired face. There's Sarah from college posting photos from her European vacation, your coworker celebrating another promotion, and that influencer showing off their designer kitchen. With each swipe, the knot in your stomach tightens. Your own life suddenly feels small, inadequate, and boring. You close the app feeling worse about yourself than when you opened it, wondering why everyone else seems to have it so much better. This nightly ritual of self-torture has become as common as brushing our teeth. We've turned social media into a highlight reel comparison machine, constantly measuring our behind-the-scenes reality against everyone else's carefully curated moments. But this isn't just a modern problem. The ancient Stoics understood that comparison is one of the fastest paths to misery, and they developed a powerful antidote that can transform your relationship with what you have. Theodore Roosevelt once said that comparison is the thief of joy, but the Stoics understood this principle 2,000 years earlier. Seneca, quoting the philosopher Epictetus, wrote, "If you don't regard what you have as enough, you'll never be happy even if you're the ruler of the whole world." Think about that statement. Even if you achieved literally everything: wealth, power, fame, success, you would still be miserable if you hadn't learned to appreciate what you already possess. The problem with comparison isn't just that it makes us feel bad temporarily. It's that it creates a fundamental misunderstanding about the nature of happiness itself. When we constantly look at what others have, we train our minds to believe that happiness comes from accumulating more things, achieving higher status, or reaching some external milestone. We tell ourselves, if I just had her job, his house, their relationship, then I'd be happy. But this is a lie that keeps us perpetually dissatisfied. Consider how this plays out in your daily life. You're content with your apartment until you visit a friend's newer place. You're satisfied with your car until you see your neighbor's upgrade. You feel good about your career progress until you hear about someone else's promotion. In each case, nothing about your actual situation changed, only your point of reference shifted. Your apartment is just as comfortable, your car just as reliable, your career just as meaningful. but comparison poisons your ability to appreciate what you have. The Stoics recognized that this pattern of thinking is not only destructive but completely irrational. Why should your happiness depend on how your life compares to someone else's? Your circumstances, challenges, goals, and values are unique to you. Measuring your life against others is like judging a musician by how well they play basketball. It makes no logical sense. But the Stoics didn't just identify the problem. They provided a solution. They developed a daily practice that modern psychology now calls gratitude. But they understood it as something much deeper than positive thinking. For the Stoics, appreciating what you have isn't about forcing fake optimism. It's about seeing reality clearly and recognizing the abundance that already exists in your life. Seneca practiced this daily recognition of enough by regularly imagining losing everything he had. Not to make himself miserable, but to help him appreciate what he often took for granted. He would spend time thinking about life without his wealth, his home, his health, his friends. This wasn't morbid pessimism. It was a way of awakening gratitude for the present moment and recognizing how much he already possessed. Here's how you can implement this ancient wisdom in your modern life. Each evening, before you check your phone or turn on the television, spend 5 minutes identifying 3 specific things you're grateful for that day. But don't just list them, really think about them. If you're grateful for your health, spend a moment appreciating the miracle of your body functioning without conscious effort. If you're grateful for a friend, remember a specific moment when they made you feel understood or supported. The key is specificity and presence. Instead of vague gratitude for family, appreciate the sound of your partner's laugh that morning or the text your sister sent checking on you. Instead of general thankfulness for work, focus on the satisfaction you felt solving a particular problem or the kindness a colleague showed you. This practice trains your mind to notice and value what's actually in your life rather than fixating on what's missing. When you catch yourself falling into comparison, use it as a trigger for gratitude practice. The moment you notice envy arising, whether from social media, conversation, or observation, immediately shift your attention to something you appreciate about your own life. This isn't about denying reality or pretending you don't want to improve your circumstances. It's about maintaining a foundation of contentment while you work toward your goals. The Stoics understood that enough isn't a quantity. It's a perspective. You can have very little and feel abundantly grateful, or you can have tremendous wealth and feel constantly deprived. The difference isn't in your external circumstances, but in your internal relationship with what you possess. This practice becomes especially powerful when you realize that you already have enough to be happy right now. You have air to breathe, food to eat, shelter from the elements, people who care about you, the ability to learn and grow, moments of beauty and connection throughout your day. These aren't consolation prizes while you wait for real happiness to arrive with your next achievement. They are the actual substance of a good life. Musonius Rufus, one of the great Stoic teachers, was exiled from Rome 4 times and lost everything multiple times. Each experience taught him how much he had been taking for granted and how little he actually needed to be content. He realized that while he had lived in Rome, he had barely noticed its beauty because he was always focused on what he might achieve next. Exile taught him to appreciate simple pleasures: sunshine, food, conversation, the opportunity to think and learn. When you develop this daily practice of recognizing enough, something remarkable happens. You stop living in a constant state of deficit, always focused on what's missing. Instead, you begin to experience abundance, not because your circumstances changed, but because your perception shifted. You realize that happiness isn't something you achieve in the future. It's something you can access right now by appreciating what's already present. This transformation in perspective creates space for genuine gratitude, which becomes the foundation for sustainable contentment. With this foundation established, we can explore how finding joy in daily improvement becomes a source of lasting fulfillment that no external circumstance can diminish. 3. Why getting better every day creates pure joy. You're standing in your Los Angeles apartment at 5:30 a.m., alarm buzzing in the pre-dawn darkness. Every fiber of your being wants to hit snooze and stay in bed, but something pulls you up. You lace up your running shoes, grab your journal, and step into the cool morning air. As you start your run through the quiet streets, you're not thinking about the promotion you want or the relationship you wish you had. You're focused on something simpler but more profound, becoming a slightly better version of yourself than you were yesterday. This might seem like a small thing, but you've stumbled upon one of the most powerful sources of human happiness that the ancient Stoics discovered. While most people chase external rewards and achievements for fulfillment, the Stoics found that the deepest joy comes from the simple act of daily improvement, becoming more disciplined, more wise, more virtuous with each passing day. Epictetus, who understood suffering better than most after spending years as a slave, made a remarkable statement that reveals the secret to sustainable happiness. I delight in my own improvement day to day. Think about those words. Here was a man who had been stripped of his freedom, his possessions, even control over his own body. Yet he found genuine delight, not mere contentment, but actual joy in the daily process of becoming better. This wasn't positive thinking or forced optimism. Epictetus had discovered something profound about human nature. We are most fulfilled when we're growing, learning, and developing our potential. While external pleasures fade and achievements lose their luster, the satisfaction of personal growth compounds day after day, creating a source of happiness that no one can take away from you. Consider how different this is from the way most people pursue happiness. We're conditioned to believe that joy comes from getting things: the new job, the perfect relationship, the bigger house, the exotic vacation. But notice what happens when you actually achieve these goals. There's a brief surge of excitement, maybe a few days or weeks of satisfaction, and then you adapt. The new normal becomes just normal, and you're back to seeking the next thing that will finally make you happy. The Stoics recognized this pattern and called it the hedonic treadmill, though they didn't use that modern term. They understood that basing your happiness on external acquisitions is like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom. No matter how much you pour in, it never stays full. But the joy of daily improvement works differently. Instead of trying to fill yourself from the outside, you're building from within, creating a foundation of satisfaction that grows stronger with time. Here's why this approach to happiness is so powerful. Every day you improve, you prove to yourself that you have agency, that you can change, that you're not stuck being who you were yesterday. This sense of personal efficacy creates confidence that no external achievement can provide. When you know you can make yourself better, you become less dependent on circumstances and other people for your sense of worth and purpose. The beauty of this approach is that improvement opportunities exist in every moment. You can become more patient while waiting in line at the grocery store. You can practice gratitude while stuck in traffic. You can choose kindness when someone is rude to you. You can read 1 page of a meaningful book, do 10 push-ups, write 3 sentences in a journal, or have 1 authentic conversation with a friend. These small actions might seem insignificant, but they're actually building something incredibly valuable. The habit of growth and the joy that comes with it. This is why the Stoics emphasized process over outcomes. Marcus Aurelius didn't write his meditations to become famous or to impress anyone. He wrote them as part of his daily practice of self-reflection and improvement. Seneca didn't practice philosophy to gain status, but to become wiser and more virtuous each day. They understood that the journey of becoming better is more fulfilling than any destination you might reach. The modern world often makes us feel like we're not enough, not successful enough, not attractive enough, not accomplished enough. But when you focus on daily improvement, you shift the conversation entirely. Instead of asking, "Am I enough?" you start asking, "How can I become better?" This transforms your relationship with yourself from judgment to curiosity, from criticism to compassion. Start small with your own practice of daily improvement. Choose one area where you want to grow. It could be physical fitness, emotional regulation, intellectual development, or character building. Commit to doing something small but meaningful in that area every single day. Read for 15 minutes. Do a brief meditation. Practice a skill you want to develop. Have a difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Express gratitude to someone who matters to you. The key is consistency rather than intensity. It's better to read 1 page every day for a year than to read an entire book once and then forget about it. The Stoics understood that character and capability are built through repeated actions, not dramatic gestures. Every day you show up for yourself, you strengthen your capacity for growth and your ability to find joy in the process. As you develop this practice, you'll notice something remarkable happening. Your sense of fulfillment becomes less dependent on external circumstances and more connected to your daily choices. Bad days don't devastate you because you know you're still growing. Setbacks don't define you because you're focused on the long-term trajectory of improvement rather than immediate results. Epictetus found delight in his daily progress because he understood that growth is the closest thing we have to a guarantee of meaningful existence. You might not control whether you get the promotion, find the perfect relationship, or achieve all your dreams. But you can control whether you become a little bit wiser, a little bit stronger, a little bit more virtuous today than you were yesterday. This internal source of joy becomes especially powerful when combined with the Stoic understanding that external distractions often prevent us from accessing this deeper fulfillment. As we move forward, we'll explore how the ancient practice of strategic disconnection allows us to focus on what truly matters and find the space necessary for genuine philosophical living. 4. How to stay focused in a world of distractions. You're trying to finish an important project at your San Francisco tech office when your phone buzzes with a text. As you reach for it, a Slack notification pops up on your computer screen. Before you can respond to either, your smartwatch vibrates with a news alert, and someone calls your name from across the room. Your email icon shows 17 new messages. Your calendar reminds you about a meeting in 20 minutes, and somewhere in the background, a podcast is playing through your wireless earbuds. By the time you look back at your work, you've completely lost your train of thought. This scene plays out millions of times daily across America. We've created a world where being constantly available, instantly responsive, and perpetually connected has become not just normal but expected. We carry devices that can reach us anywhere, at any time, with infinite streams of information, entertainment, and demands for our attention. Yet despite having access to more information than any generation in human history, we often feel scattered, overwhelmed, and unable to focus on what truly matters. The ancient Stoics understood something about attention and focus that we've largely forgotten in our hyperconnected age. They recognized that the quality of your life depends not on how much information you can consume or how quickly you can respond to demands, but on how deeply you can think, how clearly you can see, and how purposefully you can act. They practiced what we might call strategic disconnection, deliberately choosing ignorance about certain matters to preserve mental space for what truly deserved their attention. Seneca wrote, "If you want to improve, be content to be seen as ignorant about some matters." This wasn't anti-intellectualism or willful stupidity. It was the wisdom of recognizing that attention is your most precious resource, and like any resource, it must be allocated carefully. When you try to know everything and be available to everyone, you end up knowing nothing deeply and being truly present for no one. Think about how this plays out in your daily experience. You start your morning checking emails, which leads to reading news headlines, which triggers anxiety about world events you can't control. You spend your commute listening to a podcast while scrolling social media, absorbing dozens of opinions and updates that will be forgotten by evening. At work, you switch between tasks every few minutes, responding to messages, attending meetings, and trying to maintain awareness of countless projects and conversations. By the end of the day, you feel exhausted not from doing meaningful work, but from processing an endless stream of inputs that add little value to your life. The Stoics would have seen this as a form of mental slavery, allowing your mind to be pulled in every direction by external demands rather than choosing where to direct your attention. Marcus Aurelius, despite ruling an empire that required constant decision-making, still found time for deep contemplation and philosophical reflection. He understood that a leader who responds to every urgent request immediately is not a leader at all, but merely a reactor to other people's priorities. Napoleon Bonaparte, though not a Stoic, applied this principle brilliantly. He famously waited 3 weeks before opening his mail because he knew that most issues would resolve themselves without his intervention. The problems that still required his attention after 3 weeks were truly important and deserved his full focus. This wasn't procrastination. It was strategic prioritization of mental resources. Consider applying this ancient wisdom to your modern life. What if you checked email only twice per day instead of constantly? What if you turned off notifications for everything except true emergencies? What if you designated certain hours as completely unavailable for meetings or messages? You might worry that people would think you're irresponsible or unresponsive, but the opposite often happens. When you're selective about when and how you engage, people learn to respect your time and come to you with only the things that truly matter. The Stoics practiced regular periods of philosophical withdrawal, time spent in contemplation, reflection, and deep thinking about fundamental questions. They understood that wisdom doesn't come from consuming more information, but from processing deeply the information you already have. In our age of infinite content, this principle becomes even more crucial. Set aside time each day for what the Stoics called contemplation, undistracted time to think about your values, your goals, your relationships, and your choices. This isn't meditation in the mindfulness sense, though that has value too. It's active thinking time where you can process your experiences, plan your actions, and clarify your priorities without the constant input of external voices and demands. Start with just 15 minutes each morning before you check any devices. Sit quietly and think about the day ahead. What are your real priorities? What kind of person do you want to be today? What challenges might you face, and how do you want to respond to them? This simple practice creates a foundation of intentionality that helps you navigate the day's distractions without losing sight of what matters most. Similarly, end each day with a few minutes of reflection. Review your choices, your responses, and your focus. Did you spend your attention on things that aligned with your values? Were you reactive or proactive? What can you learn from today that will help you live better tomorrow? This evening review was a cornerstone of Stoic practice because it transforms experiences into wisdom. The goal isn't to become a hermit or to reject all modern technology. The Stoics were engaged with their world and their responsibilities, but they were selective about their engagement. They understood that being constantly available to everyone makes you unavailable to the people and projects that matter most, including yourself. When you protect your attention like the precious resource it is, something remarkable happens. Your thinking becomes clearer, your relationships become deeper, and your work becomes more meaningful. You stop living in a state of constant reaction and start living with genuine intention. You discover that being unreachable for certain periods makes you more effective and more present when you do engage. This practice of mindful attention and strategic disconnection creates the mental space necessary for the deeper understanding that true happiness isn't something you chase or achieve, but something that emerges naturally when you live according to timeless principles of wisdom and virtue. 5. The secret to happiness you never learned in school. You're walking through downtown Boston on a crisp autumn morning, passing the gleaming office towers where ambitious professionals chase their next promotion. Your own career has been a series of calculated moves: the right college, the right internship, the right job, the right connections. You've checked all the boxes society told you would lead to happiness. Good grades, prestigious position, impressive salary, nice apartment. Yet as you sit in your corner office looking out at the city, you can't shake the feeling that something fundamental is missing. This emptiness, despite external success, has become epidemic in modern America. We've been taught that happiness is a destination you reach through achievement, accumulation, and recognition. Get the degree, land the job, buy the house, find the relationship, earn the promotion, and then, finally, you'll be happy. But millions of successful people wake up each day feeling unfulfilled, wondering why all their accomplishments haven't delivered the satisfaction they were promised. The reason is simple but profound. We've been taught to pursue happiness directly, like a goal to be achieved or a prize to be won. But the ancient Stoics understood something that modern education completely overlooks: happiness cannot be pursued, can only be lived. Marcus Aurelius, who had access to every pleasure and achievement the ancient world could offer, wrote extensively about the nature of human flourishing. He understood that happiness, what the Greeks called eudaimonia, isn't an emotion you feel or a state you achieve. It's the natural byproduct of living according to virtue, wisdom, and your highest human potential. When you focus on being a good person and doing the right thing, happiness emerges automatically as a side effect. This is radically different from how we're taught to think about happiness in school, at work, and in popular culture. We're told to ask questions like, what will make me happy? How can I get what I want? What do I need to feel fulfilled? But these questions actually lead us away from fulfillment because they make happiness the primary goal rather than the natural result of right living. The Stoics asked different questions. What is the right thing to do? How can I live according to my values? What would virtue look like in this situation? How can I contribute to something larger than myself? When you organize your life around these questions instead of the pursuit of happiness, something remarkable happens. You become genuinely happy without trying. Consider how this plays out in practical terms. Imagine you're facing a difficult decision at work. The happiness-focused approach asks, which choice will make me happiest? This often leads to short-term thinking, avoiding difficult conversations, or choosing what's easy over what's right. The virtue-focused approach asks, which choice reflects my values? What would courage look like here? How can I act with integrity? When you choose based on virtue rather than immediate happiness, you often find that you feel better about yourself and your life in the long run. This principle explains why so many people who achieve their goals still feel empty. You spend years working toward a promotion, telling yourself you'll be happy when you get it. Finally, you're promoted and there's a brief surge of satisfaction. But within weeks, the achievement feels normal, and you're looking toward the next goal that will supposedly bring happiness. The problem isn't that you chose the wrong goal. It's that you made happiness the goal instead of virtue. Viktor Frankl, who survived the Nazi concentration camps, discovered this same principle through extreme suffering. He observed that people who focused directly on avoiding pain or seeking pleasure were more likely to despair, while those who found meaning and purpose in their circumstances could endure almost anything. He wrote that happiness must ensue from meaningful action. It cannot be the primary objective. The Stoics practiced this understanding daily. Instead of asking, "What will make me happy today?" they asked, "How can I live excellently today?" Instead of pursuing pleasure, they pursued character development. Instead of avoiding all discomfort, they embraced challenges as opportunities to practice virtue. The happiness they experienced wasn't the temporary high of getting what they wanted, but the deep satisfaction of becoming who they were meant to be. This doesn't mean the Stoics were grim ascetics who rejected all pleasure. They enjoyed good food, friendship, beauty, and success when these things came naturally. But they didn't organize their lives around obtaining these pleasures, and they didn't depend on them for their fundamental well-being. Their happiness came from something more reliable, their own character and choices. You can apply this principle immediately in your own life. Instead of making decisions based on what you think will make you happy, make decisions based on what will help you become the person you want to be. When facing a choice, ask yourself, which option reflects my values? What would courage, wisdom, justice, or self-discipline look like here? How can I act with integrity regardless of the outcome? This approach transforms everything. Your work becomes less about climbing the ladder and more about contributing value and developing your capabilities. Your relationships become less about what others can do for you and more about how you can be a good friend, partner, or family member. Your daily routines become less about maximizing pleasure and more about building character and wisdom. The beautiful paradox is that when you stop chasing happiness directly and focus instead on living excellently, you become genuinely happy. Not the fleeting happiness of getting what you want, but the deep contentment that comes from knowing you're living according to your highest principles. This happiness is more sustainable because it doesn't depend on external circumstances. It comes from who you are, not what you have. The Stoics understood that virtue is its own reward. When you act with courage, you feel courageous. When you practice wisdom, you feel wise. When you choose justice, you feel just. These feelings of alignment between your values and your actions create a form of happiness that no external achievement can match and no external circumstance can destroy. This understanding becomes even more powerful when we recognize how little we actually need for genuine contentment, and how often our assumptions about what's necessary for happiness prevent us from appreciating the abundance that already surrounds us. 6. What losing everything teaches about true wealth. You're sitting in your cramped studio apartment in expensive Seattle, surrounded by boxes from your recent move. 6 months ago, you were living in a spacious house, driving a luxury car, and eating at trendy restaurants without checking your bank account. Then the layoffs came. The mortgage became impossible. The lifestyle you thought was necessary for happiness vanished overnight. Now you're learning to live on a fraction of your former income, cooking simple meals at home, walking instead of driving, finding free entertainment instead of expensive diversions. But here's what surprises you. Despite losing almost everything you thought you needed, you're not miserable. In fact, there are moments when you feel more peaceful than you have in years. You're sleeping better without the stress of enormous monthly payments. You're reading more books, having deeper conversations with friends, noticing beauty in simple things you used to rush past. You're discovering that much of what you thought was essential for happiness was actually preventing you from experiencing genuine contentment. This discovery echoes the profound lessons learned by Musonius Rufus, one of the greatest Stoic teachers, who was exiled from Rome 4 times and lost his wealth, position, and possessions repeatedly. Each time he lost everything, he learned something valuable about the difference between what we think we need and what we actually need for a good life. His experiences of loss became his greatest teachers about the nature of true wealth. During his first exile, Musonius initially felt devastated. He missed the comfort of his Roman villa, the stimulation of philosophical discussions in the city, and the convenience of having servants and resources. But as months passed in his simple exile, he began to notice something remarkable. He was still capable of thinking, learning, and growing. He could still appreciate the warmth of sunshine, the taste of simple food, the pleasure of meaningful conversation. He could still practice virtue, show kindness to others, and find purpose in each day. Gradually, Musonius realized that while he had lived in Rome for years, he had barely experienced it. He had been so focused on accumulating more wealth, gaining more recognition, and expanding his influence that he had rushed through his days without truly appreciating what he already possessed. He had lived in one of the most beautiful cities in the world, but spent most of his time indoors worried about business dealings. He had access to incredible libraries but was too busy to read deeply. He was surrounded by interesting people but too preoccupied to really listen to them. This is the paradox of modern abundance that Musonius discovered through loss. The more we have, the less we often appreciate what we possess. When you have countless options for entertainment, you might spend more time choosing what to watch than actually enjoying it. When you have unlimited restaurant choices, you might feel less satisfied with your meal than someone eating a simple home-cooked dinner. When you can afford anything, you might value nothing. Musonius learned that happiness requires surprisingly little. During exile, he discovered he needed basic shelter from the elements, simple food to nourish his body, clean water to drink, and the company of a few good people. Everything beyond these basics was luxury, not necessity. This wasn't deprivation. It was clarity about what actually contributes to well-being versus what we're told should make us happy. Modern research confirms what Musonius learned through experience. Studies consistently show that once basic needs are met, additional wealth has diminishing returns on happiness. The difference in life satisfaction between someone making $50,000 and someone making $50 million is much smaller than most people imagine. Yet we organize our entire lives around pursuing financial success that will have minimal impact on our actual well-being. The Stoics weren't advocating poverty or rejecting all material goods. Musonius enjoyed comfort and convenience when they were available. But his experiences of loss taught him not to depend on external things for his fundamental happiness. He learned to hold material possessions lightly, grateful for them when present, but not devastated when they disappeared. This lesson becomes especially relevant in our consumer culture, where we're constantly bombarded with messages that we need more to be happy. More space, more gadgets, more clothes, more experiences, more stuff. We work longer hours to afford things we don't have time to enjoy, then wonder why we feel exhausted and unfulfilled despite our abundance. The practice Musonius developed was called voluntary discomfort, occasionally choosing to live with less than you could afford, not as punishment but as training. Spend a day eating only simple foods. Sleep on the floor occasionally. Walk instead of driving when possible. Wear the same clothes for a week. These exercises aren't about suffering but about discovering how little you actually need to be content and how much of your supposed needs are actually wants. When you regularly practice voluntary simplicity, you develop what the Stoics called a preferred indifferent attitude toward material things. You can enjoy nice things when you have them, but you don't depend on them for your happiness. You appreciate abundance when it's present, but you don't fear scarcity because you know you can be content with very little. This understanding transforms your relationship with money and possessions entirely. Instead of feeling like you're on a treadmill where you constantly need more to maintain your happiness, you discover that contentment is available right now with what you already have. This doesn't make you lazy or unambitious. It frees you to pursue goals for better reasons than the mistaken belief that achievement will finally make you happy. Musonius found that his periods of exile, which initially seemed like punishments, became gifts. They stripped away the non-essential and revealed what truly mattered. His capacity for thought, his ability to connect with others, his opportunity to practice virtue, his chance to appreciate simple pleasures. These things were available to him whether he lived in a palace or a hut, whether he was wealthy or poor, whether he was honored or forgotten. The true wealth Musonius discovered wasn't financial. It was the richness of a life lived simply, consciously, and in alignment with virtue. This wealth could never be confiscated by emperors, lost in market crashes, or diminished by circumstances. It was the wealth of character, wisdom, and the ability to find joy in the present moment, regardless of external conditions. Building on this foundation of understanding what we truly need, we can explore how our daily choices shape not just our circumstances but our very character, creating a form of beauty that radiates from within and cannot be diminished by time or circumstance. 7. How beautiful choices create lasting beauty. You're standing in front of your bathroom mirror in your Miami apartment, getting ready for another day at work. As you look at your reflection, the familiar wave of self-criticism begins. You notice the lines around your eyes, the imperfections in your skin, the ways your body doesn't match the impossible standards constantly promoted on social media. You spend 20 minutes applying products and choosing clothes that might help you feel more attractive, but underneath it all, you still feel inadequate. No matter how much effort you put into your appearance, you can't shake the feeling that you're not beautiful enough. This daily ritual of self-judgment has become so common that we accept it as normal. We've been conditioned to believe that beauty is purely physical, something you either have or don't have, something that depends on genetics, youth, and expensive products. We measure our worth by how closely we resemble carefully curated images of perfection, forgetting that even those images are heavily edited and filtered. But what if everything we've been taught about beauty is wrong? The ancient Stoics understood something about beauty that our culture has completely forgotten. They believe that true beauty isn't something you're born with or something you can buy. It's something you create through your choices, your character, and the way you move through the world. Seneca wrote that when you make beautiful choices, you become beautiful regardless of your physical features, age, or circumstances. This isn't metaphorical or philosophical abstraction. It's something you can observe in real life. Think about the people you find most attractive, not just physically but as human beings. Chances are, their appeal comes not just from their features but from something deeper. The way they treat others with kindness, their confidence in their own worth, their ability to find joy in simple moments, their integrity in difficult situations. There's something magnetic about people who know who they are and live according to their values. Consider someone you know who embodies this kind of beauty. Maybe it's a colleague who always speaks up for what's right, even when it's difficult. Maybe it's a friend who finds genuine joy in other people's success instead of feeling threatened by it. Maybe it's a family member who faces challenges with grace and resilience. When you're around these people, you feel drawn to them not because of their physical appearance, but because of their character. They radiate something that no cosmetic product or surgical procedure can create. This is what the Stoics meant by beautiful choices creating beauty. Every decision to act with integrity makes you more beautiful. Every moment you choose courage over comfort makes you more attractive. Every time you practice kindness instead of criticism, patience instead of irritation, wisdom instead of reactivity, you're creating a form of beauty that deepens with time rather than fading. The beauty industry, worth hundreds of billions of dollars, is built on the premise that you're not enough as you are, that you need external products and procedures to become acceptable. But the Stoics understood that this approach to beauty is not only expensive and temporary, it's completely backwards. Real beauty flows from the inside out, from the quality of your character and the consistency of your choices. Start your day by asking not, "How can I look better?" but, "How can I be better?" Instead of spending the first 30 minutes of your morning critiquing your appearance, spend it setting intentions for how you want to show up in the world. Do you want to be someone who brings out the best in others? Someone who stays calm under pressure? Someone who acts with integrity even when no one is watching? These intentions shape your face, your posture, your presence in ways that no beauty product ever could. Throughout your day, remember that every interaction is an opportunity to practice beautiful choices. When someone cuts you off in traffic, you can choose road rage or patience. And that choice affects not just your stress level, but your actual attractiveness. When a colleague takes credit for your work, you can choose bitterness or grace. And that choice shapes your facial expression, your energy, your appeal to others. When you see someone struggling, you can choose indifference or compassion. and that choice influences how others perceive and respond to you. The Stoics practiced daily examination of their choices, not from a place of self-criticism, but from a desire to align their actions with their values. Each evening, reflect on the choices you made that day. When did you act with courage, wisdom, justice, or self-discipline? When did you choose kindness over judgment, patience over irritation, honesty over convenience? These moments of beautiful choosing are building something in you that becomes more attractive over time. This understanding of beauty transforms how you see aging, imperfection, and the changes that come with time. While physical beauty is temporary and fragile, character-based beauty grows stronger with experience. The lines around your eyes can tell the story of years of genuine laughter and compassion. The calluses on your hands can reflect honest work and service to others. The gray in your hair can represent wisdom earned through facing life's challenges with courage. People who understand this kind of beauty age differently. They don't desperately cling to youth because they know their value doesn't depend on maintaining physical perfection. They don't feel threatened by others' success because their confidence comes from their character, not their appearance. They don't need constant validation because they know that their beauty comes from their choices, which are entirely within their control. This doesn't mean neglecting your physical health or appearance entirely. The Stoics valued taking reasonable care of your body and presenting yourself well. But they understood that these things should be expressions of self-respect and care for others, not desperate attempts to achieve an impossible standard of perfection. When you live this way, making beautiful choices consistently, building character daily, treating yourself and others with dignity and respect, something remarkable happens. You become magnetic not because you're perfect, but because you're authentic. You attract people not because you meet conventional beauty standards, but because you embody something much more rare and valuable. Genuine goodness, real confidence, and the kind of beauty that comes from living according to your highest values. The Stoics knew that this kind of beauty is available to everyone, regardless of age, genetics, or circumstances. It's not limited by budget, time, or physical features. It requires only the willingness to make beautiful choices, day after day, building a character that radiates attractiveness from the inside out. You wake up tomorrow morning, but this time, something is different. Instead of immediately reaching for your phone to check what everyone else is doing, you pause and ask yourself, how can I live excellently today? Instead of seeking validation from others, you feel grounded in your own worth and values. Instead of comparing yourself to others, you focus on your own growth and improvement. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by distractions, you know what deserves your attention. Instead of chasing happiness directly, you pursue virtue and find that contentment follows naturally. Instead of feeling like you need more to be satisfied, you appreciate the abundance already present in your life. Instead of worrying about your appearance, you focus on making beautiful choices that create lasting attractiveness from within. This transformation isn't fantasy. It's the natural result of applying the 7 ancient Stoic keys to lasting happiness we've explored together. These principles have worked for over 2,000 years because they address the fundamental aspects of human nature that remain constant across cultures and centuries. Marcus Aurelius used them while ruling an empire. Seneca applied them while navigating political intrigue. Epictetus practiced them while overcoming slavery. Musonius Rufus relied on them through repeated exile and loss. Now you have access to the same timeless wisdom that helped these remarkable individuals find peace, purpose, and profound satisfaction regardless of their external circumstances. You've learned that true confidence comes from within, that gratitude ends the comparison trap, that daily improvement creates lasting joy, that strategic disconnection enables deep focus, that happiness emerges from virtue rather than achievement, that very little is needed for contentment, and that beautiful choices create genuine beauty. The beauty of Stoic philosophy is its practicality. These aren't abstract theories, but proven strategies you can implement immediately. Start today by choosing one key that resonates most strongly with you. Maybe it's building internal confidence by focusing on your own actions rather than others' opinions. Maybe it's practicing evening gratitude to transform your relationship with what you have. Maybe it's creating daily improvement rituals that generate genuine satisfaction. Maybe it's setting boundaries with technology to protect your attention. Maybe it's shifting from pursuing happiness to pursuing virtue. Maybe it's appreciating simplicity and recognizing how little you actually need. Maybe it's making choices that reflect your character rather than your insecurities. Remember, the Stoics believed that philosophy isn't academic exercise but a way of life. These keys only work if you actually use them. Start small, be consistent, and trust the process. You have within you right now everything you need to experience the lasting happiness that comes from living according to ancient wisdom in the modern world. If this video has helped you discover a new perspective on happiness and fulfillment, please subscribe to Stoic Vivu for more practical applications of ancient wisdom to modern life. Like this video if these 7 keys resonated with you, and share it with someone who might benefit from learning that happiness isn't something you chase, but something you create through your daily choices. Your journey towards Stoic happiness begins with your very next decision. Make it a beautiful one.